Hey, I'm Rob, and welcome to Understanding Upstate. It's the podcast dedicated to exploring what makes upstate New York such a unique place. Each week, my co-host Jim Search and I dive into a new upstate topic to better understand what's up upstate. And today we're talking about an upstate battle between oil magnate, or magnate, maybe.
I think it's magnate.
Well, we're not retaking it. Oil magnate William Rockefeller and Adirondack original Oliver Lamora, or also how legendarily huge of an asshole William Rockefeller is. That's the subheading.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I was telling my lady here before she stepped out of the house, just like a snippet of his assholishness, which we'll get into in a little bit. And yeah, she just paused and was like, "What an asshole."
Yeah, vindictive and also patient is what I learned in my reading.
As many sociopaths tend to be. So
indeed. But Jim, before we get into a rabbit hole of sociopathy, I want to bring it back to Speedies just for a quick minute.
Say less, man.
I'm going to be grilling some Speedies on Wednesday. And I just want to point out, it's going to be like below 30 on Wednesday. And that's just my dedication to upstate delicacies. But so I'm going to be grilling Speedies. And we're actually going to start the marinade tonight. And that's my first question. Yep. Is 48 hours long enough of a marinade, in your opinion?
Oh, hell yeah. In my humble opinion, I say a day or better.
Got it.
Like, if you can soak them for a day or more, you're in the clear. Like, day of, I think you're going to lose a little bit, but you get a solid 24 and up.
All right.
You got yourself a Speedy, man.
Next question. Do you cube the chicken before or after you marinate?
So when I make them now, like, because I throw them, like, yeah, the Speedy gods may kill me, but I don't care. I make them on a Foreman grill, so like I'm not necessarily throwing them on a skewer to do it. But if I had the resources to do so, I think I would probably skewer them and then grill them up.
All right. And do you have so the plan is we're going to do Speedy subs one night, and then later on, we're going to do Speedy salads. So two-part question. One, do you have a preferred bread? I know it's supposed to be like an Italian sub loaf. Do you have a favorite? And also, is it acceptable to put dressing on a Speedy salad?
Great questions.
I'll take my answer off mic.
What I would say is, I don't necessarily have a preferred bread. I think if you get like a hearty Italian kind of sub, that works. That like in New York, a hero. Now, in terms of a dressing on a salad, I think if you are going to put a dressing on it, you got to go with like an Italian or like even like oil and vinegar, like any other kind of dressing, like ranch is insane.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like any of like the creamier dressings you're really going to lose the punch of a Speedy, if you will. So oil and vinegar, Italian dressing, I think are your good go-tos.
And kind of a related question, what do you think pairs well with a Speedy? Chips, beer, white wine? What are we doing?
I was immediately going to interject with beer. So he said, what pairs beer? It just needs beer. So what goes well with that though? Yeah, a beer is fucking great.
I feel like a Miller High Life would be top shelf choice.
If you're speaking the language of my people, that's one of the dialects of my people is Miller Lite. So I think you can't go wrong there. In terms of like a side, like chips are great. Throw some chips on the side. You know what I mean? I think it's in some ways a sub, in that you would get a bag of chips with a sub, right? So I think you could. Right. You're not going to go wrong there, not at all.
All right. Well, I'll keep you posted on how it goes. We may even get some speedy pics on the Instagram. Follow us at Understanding Upstate if you want to see how it turned out.
And email us at understandingupstate@gmail.com.
I'll send you all the speedy pics if requested.
Even if not requested.
Once we have your email, I'm spamming everyone on that list with speedy pics.
That's right, baby.
We're not here to talk at length about the titan of the grilled meat world, which is the Speedy. We've already done that, though we may do it again, but we're not doing it today. Today we're going to talk about the oil titan, William Rockefeller, and his very petty fight against a war veteran living off of army pension in the Adirondacks. Should we get into it, Jim?
I think so. I think we should. I think the people need to hear it. I do want to say very quickly, like, if you weren't sure how to become a villain, like if you're already like, man, what is the way I can do that? It's go after a veteran.
Yeah.
Veterans are probably on paper, the most like sacrosanct, one of the most sacrosanct groups according to America. So you don't fuck with veterans. But William Rockefeller was like, oh, no. I do not care. I don't give a fuck, man.
Indeed.
Let's go.
All right. So what we're going to do is get just a quick overview of William Rockefeller and kind of also the atmosphere in which this battle played out, which again, we're in the Adirondacks, specifically the northern Adirondacks, which actually there wasn't a lot of tourism up there at that point. There's a lot of logging going on up there, but more of the resorts and stuff are kind of the mid to southern Adirondack region. So it was kind of at this point wasn't much more than logging and some of these associated industries like paper and pulp and all that fun stuff, right? So William Avery Rockefeller, born May 31st, 1841, died June 24th, 1922. He was, get this, an American businessman. And he co-founded Standard Oil, just massive oil conglomerate, with his brother, John D. Rockefeller, who's the more well-known Rockefeller. But again, him and William were co-partners, co-founders of Standard Oil. What a really big trend at the time in the late 1800s was basically curating your own forest. If you had more money than you knew what to do with, you were trying to like have a 50,000 acre forest that you like tried to like plan out. And this is basically something that Vanderbilt did at Biltmore. He was like, well, a garden is nice, but how about I cultivate a forest? And the idea itself is cool, where they're not trying to put like competing species of trees next to each other. Like, ultimately a good thing. It's stuff people currently do in like forestry. This is millionaires playing God with forests, basically, right?
Which I would think that in like the kind of the realm of forestry, where they're like planning out a forest, other people can go to it, right? I'm assuming.
Right.
I'm assuming that when you are a millionaire, you're like, man, I want all this forest for just me and my friends and family, no one else.
There's very strange bedfellows throughout this journey, in that you have a bunch of these ultra wealthy dudes trying to buy up massive tracts of land, thousands upon thousands of acres at a time, all under the guise of conservation. Even in 1890, J.P. Morgan, William C. Whitney, and John D. Rockefeller and others all got together in New York City to form the Adirondack Park Association, which was to quote unquote prevent the further destruction of the Adirondacks by lumbermen and establish a state forest park in the region.
Okay.
But this was basically all to just protect their tracts of land, right?
Right.
Which they also logged on. So there are a lot of laws that ultimately got passed after like further revision and people eventually figuring out like, oh, screw JP Morgan and Rockefeller. Like this is not helping give access to normal people.
Right.
But again, like this is a pretty big through line where you have all these, like, you know, these are millionaires in their day. It would be like if Jeff Bezos was like, oh, I want to protect the Amazon for me, right? Like they're
right.
These are the wealthiest people of the time. Anyway, so in 1898, enter a one William Rockefeller, and he's starting to buy up a bunch of land in, again, the northern Adirondacks to build his estate, which would be named Bay Pond. It sounds just like a nice little
postcard town.
Exactly. It, in fact, was 25,000 acres to start, which he bought up all at once from basically someone who had been logging the area and had a mill. And he got, in this bundled purchase, he got a couple mountains, some ponds, he got the old sawmill, and he got half of a town called Brandon. And initially all the residents were like, oh, this could be good, maybe, could be bad, but maybe Rockefeller's gonna keep the mill going, right? Basically logging had dropped off a little bit. And they're like, well, if Rockefeller's interested, maybe we can get a little more interest in logging in the area. They were wrong.
I feel like he kind of set the precedent of don't think that rich people have your best interest, because they don't.
Indeed. Basically, pretty abruptly, Rockefeller announced that his park was going to be a private game preserve, which there was laws for this at the time. That, again, it's like under the guise of preservation where like there's no logging. It's all just for nature. It's all just going to exist here. You don't get to enjoy it, but it's there. Just take comfort in knowing that it's preserved, right?
Yes. Great.
A really key point is the fact that he now owned half of the town. And Rockefeller really wanted Bay Pond to be like remote, not have anyone around, right? As if 25,000 acres wasn't enough privacy. There's like a railroad that went through. He really wanted to get that moved. One, because again, it's then no train going through his property, but also if he could move the rail line, then the town of Brandon would no longer have rail access and more people would up and move. Basically, he wanted to devalue people's homes so he could buy them for cheaper.
I was going to say, I wonder if any developers today are trying to do anything like that. This sounds very familiar.
No, this never happened before. Never will happen again either.
No way. Anyway, go on.
Rockefeller starts scheming like very early on. This is, moving this rail line is something he tries to do for years and years. And while he's trying to get some wheels turning, or I guess trying to get some wheels to stop turning, he starts lowballing everyone in the town of Brandon, on their properties. Generally, some people accept, others dig their heels in, and as he buys up different houses, he immediately posts them again saying hey, you can't go on this property. He essentially slash and burns the town. If he buys it up, he demolishes the house.
Jesus Christ.
and then just leaves the rubble there, making shit very uninhabitable, like super unfriendly. If he owns the road, if he owns anything on the sides of the roads, he's posting it. Imagine if you're like walking down the street and like if you step off the sidewalk, you're now trespassing and it's going to be prosecuted, right? Like that's the kind of shit people are dealing with.
Jesus Christ.
And this is the Adirondacks too. Like there's a lot of great tradition there where like people are living off the land. They're hunting, they're fishing, they're gathering wood. They're gathering like literally fuel, right? To like heat their homes just from the woods. The people in Brandon like can't do that anymore. And again, Rockefeller is intentionally making all this much more difficult. The other key thing is that Rockefeller now owns the one road in and out of town. He hasn't posted it to the extent that people can't go in and out of it, but it's the way things are going. People are just like, he might just close the road, right? So a lot of people move out. Basically, by the end of 1902, the town is, it's almost a ghost town at this point. A lot of people have moved out. He essentially has gone from 25,000 acres up to 50,000 acres of land, which is
Jesus Christ.
Massive.
And now just a question, is this just him or does he have like a wife and kids?
He has a family. I know he has at least one son and a wife. We haven't even talked about the estate that he's building there. Like he has all this land and he's also building this insane property, like massive house. He put at one point later on, he brought Japanese builders to build like Japanese cottages. He like flew in people from a different country to build in that architectural style just because he wanted it. This was like, again, like, yeah, you need Japanese cottages in the Adirondacks to have a nature preserve.
You don't need that unless you are a fucking prick. Then you do.
Yeah, this is like James Bond villain level shit. Like they're writing the book,
right.
the book for those films in 50 years. So again, the town is a ghost of what it used to be, and because of that, the rail line that still existed and did go through Brandon was basically like declassified as a regular train stop to a flag stop, which basically meant it wouldn't regularly stop at the town of Brandon. It could only do so if it was like a special direction from the conductor. So people lose their regular ability to leave, the greater area, right? Which again, we're in like northern Adirondacks. It's only a couple hours away from Canada, right? Like it's a long ways away from anything, right? Which is part of its appeal. But like, if you're living there and you got to go to a bigger town or something, like not many ways to do it.
And there's this fucking megalomaniac who is systematically destroying the life that you knew that existed there.
It's impressive how much of a lunatic he was. And we haven't even talked about the guy who took him on yet. Again, I'm just trying to set the ground for how much of a jerk William Rockefeller is. So in that vein, there are people that again resisted Rockefeller's attempts to buy them out. Some people, there's a Protestant church in Brandon. They, at their own expense, disassembled the church and moved it off the land to another town, like miles and miles away. Rockefeller was willing to essentially pay them this amount of money to do this. They did it at their own expense, so they didn't take his blood-soaked oil money.
Interesting.
Didn't want anything to do with him. And there again, there's a kind of a collective of people who stayed in town, and one of those people is Oliver Lamora. our hero.
That's right.
For today's tale. Oliver, again, he was a Civil War veteran who saw like a lot of action. He was like he was in the Union Army. I think that's an important detail for talking Civil War.
Right.
And he, went on to actually battle like General Robert E. Lee's army. Like he saw serious action. And after the war, he and his wife settled in Brandon ultimately with their 8 children, Jim. 8 children.
8. It's almost a football team.
Right.
You're working your way up. You already have basketball.
That's true.
You have if 2 more, they would have 5-on-5.
There we go. Well, I mean, if Oliver and Rose are playing,
right.
We're good. Yeah. But just keep that detail in mind, like as we get into what Rockefeller did to this guy. He is a Civil War veteran, middle-aged to like all later age Civil War veteran, and the father of 8 children living off of his pension. Right. Again, at this point, this is 1902. Again, Rockefeller's been amassing his 50,000 acres for a couple of years. The town has kind of dwindled, and it's opening day for trout fishing, and Oliver heads straight for the Rockefeller property. Just posted. It has guards at this point, armed guards to patrol the land, and a guard comes up to him, tells him to leave, and Oliver refuses to do so until he's done fishing.
Great. Less
than a week later, Oliver is in front of a justice of peace in the town of Moira. This issue of trespassing. Yeah, so Rockefeller's trying to prosecute Oliver for trespassing on his land, and this goes to court 4 times. It basically just keeps going to court. It gets appealed. It keeps getting kicked up to higher levels of court.
Oh my God.
Each time Oliver wins, right? Like he's got a team of lawyers that believe in him. And like we've said, a Civil War hero and father of many is like an easy, figure to back publicly, right?
Right.
Let alone someone like William Rockefeller, who at this point is like very well known for being anti-union, having, not ethical business practices. Eventually the government, pretty soon they're going to start looking into breaking up Standard Oil into like, gets broken up into like 30 companies or some shit. Like,
right.
It's people don't like the Rockefellers.
No.
They're well disliked at this point. And a lot of land law is tied up in this case, right? Lawyers are thinking like, hey, if we can get a court decision in favor of Oliver, that helps free up these insanely massive private park reserves for public use.
Right.
And again, it's not just Rockefeller. There's many other millionaires in the Adirondacks and throughout the country, but specifically in the Adirondacks that have these huge tracts to the point where like they'll surround state-owned land so people can't get to it, right?
Right.
Because it's a private park that totally encases state land. The millionaires effectively own that land too.
By proxy, that's theirs.
Exactly. So again, Oliver goes to court 4 times over this trespass issue, and the lawyer comes up with a pretty awesome argument where basically he's saying, hey, there's this river that flows through Rockefeller's land, the St. Regis River, and that river is stocked with trout and other fish by the New York State government. They stock that river.
Right.
And since those state stocked fish are swimming through your land, if Oliver was going onto your private property to fish these state-owned fish, basically,
right,
he didn't break any law, and the judge agreed that everyone has a right to those fish.
Clever.
Chalk that up to a victory, a couple of victories for Oliver. So a year goes by. Again, we go to court 4 times over this. And because of that victory, hundreds of people are now trespassing on these private parks to fish and to hunt.
That's great.
Right? Because the state government's also, I don't know the technical term, but they're like helping the deer population as well in the same way that they would stock a pond or a lake or a river, right?
I was going to ask, like, did they use the same defense for people hunting? And now I know.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other court cases, but again, since this is it involves a Rockefeller and he had the biggest singularly owned park reserves. There were some other ones. I think he had the third largest. The other 2 were owned by like groups or conglomerates. There's some other like hunting clubs for the wealthy would buy up, 10,000 acres. And if you're a member of the club, you can go hunt there, which some of that still exists. Like if you see, there's a couple of hunting clubs here in Brooklyn, you'll walk by.
Fun.
They got some private land upstate still.
Sounds like some real well-adjusted, salt-of-the-earth people.
For sure.
They don't drink Miller Lite.
No. Well, you know what? That's more of the champagne of beers for me.
That's right.
So yeah, hundreds of people are trespassing on these parks now. So that kind of ratchets up the tension. That means more guards on the property. The guards are getting more aggressive. And to make things worse, this might sound a little bit familiar, but in the summer of 1903, there was really bad fires in the Adirondacks, and people really couldn't go outside.
Oh,
we've done that. We've been.
I've had to wash all of my clothes because of such an event, but yes, go on.
I was reading descriptions, and it was like sailors came in from the ocean because they thought a terrible storm was approaching. No, just smoke. But yeah, similar situation to what if you live on the East Coast or were on the East Coast this past summer, you may have found it hard to breathe outside. So yeah, tensions are getting worse. The fires are in the Adirondacks too, so it's not just this issue of smoke. It's a lot of these parks are burning. There's tens of thousands of acres burned that summer, and people are getting into altercations with these guards. As much of an asshole William Rockefeller was, there was a guy that outdid him by a little bit, and his name was Orlando Dexter.
Man.
Like, it's truly a study in assholery. Like, he was more upfront with his tactics than what Rockefeller was doing, which again, Rockefeller is also pretty upfront with how he's doing things, but he's escalating things much, much more aggressively.
Right.
Like he wanted this one guy's property and the guy wouldn't sell. He built a house in the middle of the road. Like he bought the road that led to his property. He built a house in the middle of that road and stationed guards there to live in the house. So when he would trespass, they would catch him immediately. And basically...
What a fucking weirdo.
Yes. Guy steps on the land. They go to court. Court battle lasts years. The guy basically loses all of his money and has to sell his land to Orlando Dexter. Again, legendary asshole. He was so disliked that he got assassinated, Jim.
Orlando did?
He got assassinated. Yes. It was, I believe it was the summer of 1903. Basically, he was driving and someone stepped out of the woods and shot him twice, and he died. And this spooked a lot of the ultra wealthy at the time. Rockefeller hired detectives. Orlando's dad, who's also a millionaire, hired detectives. Rockefeller offered unlimited funds to basically catch this guy. Like literally unlimited funds. He's just like, I will pay whatever.
Wow.
And this was public knowledge to catch the person.
Did they catch the dude?
You know what? I don't think they did.
Great.
I don't think they did. Basically, Orlando's dad at a certain point was just like, I'm not going to the Adirondacks ever, and if you're a millionaire, you shouldn't either, and I'm out. I'm done. He like sold his son's land.
Great.
Wiped his hands clean of it. So again, this is things are much more tense. The court case keeps, again, kind of getting kicked up the chain of courts. Again, Rockefeller has lost all of the major court cases so far, but what he's able to do is he successfully gets a court injunction which basically bans Lamora on any of Rockefeller's property. Remember, Rockefeller's property encloses the town of Brandon.
Right. So now Lamora's essentially just tethered to the town. Like he can't leave.
Yeah, he's a prisoner in his own home, basically. And the only way he can get in and out of town is by walking the railroad line.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Again, like you'd think like if you're William Rockefeller that like you have so much other shit to do, right? If you are an oil magnate,
yep,
you got a full ass company to fucking run, but he's like, nah, I'm gonna carve out time today.
You could also offer Oliver Lamora like, you know, a decent, what would be a decent amount of money to him and his 8 kids and wife, and be done with it.
Nah,
but no, he like very famously. Both Rockefellers, they would lowball, and if a counter offer came their way, they wouldn't budge, like they wouldn't negotiate. Again, just real jerks. So Oliver lives off pension, which means he's getting it sent to him via the U.S. mail to basically live, right?
Sure. No Venmo.
No Venmo, no PayPal,
Nope.
Nothing. No Cash App even. Cash App.
Not even a Cash App.
Strange times. No, nothing.
Right.
Again, Rockefeller has built this massive estate to the point where he built a post office on his property because he has a couple hundred people living there, right? So he builds his own post office. Guess what he then figures he can do since there's so few people living in Brandon?
Well, I think he figures that he can just reroute the mail to his new post office, if I had to guess.
Yes, and he's successful in this. It takes some doing, but essentially the post office in Brandon closes. So not only does Oliver Lamora not have the ability to leave his like immediate surroundings, but now he also has to illegally trespass to go to the post office to get his pension check.
Yo, this is like Mean Girl level.
Yeah.
Unreal.
And this goes back and forth on the post office. Like it closes, then it gets reopened, then it closes again, and then it ultimately does get opened as a victory for Oliver because this is national news that Rockefeller is taking on this guy, and just public sentiment towards Rockefeller are again already not high. It's just plummeting lower and lower and lower as he digs Lamora into this hole.
Right.
So it gets a lot of people on Oliver's side. Ultimately, the post office is reopened in this kind of victory for Oliver. All these court cases last until 1906. Like you said, Jim, you would think he would have better things to do.
I would think.
Again, he's one of the wealthiest men in the world. He's like literally in Europe sending telegrams to the Adirondacks about how to proceed with the Oliver Lamora issue. Wild stuff.
That's so wild, man, to like be just like handling some like international business and just like, man, there's this grizzled old war vet that I just gotta go after. Can't stand it. That's so crazy.
Keeps me up at night.
Yeah, just, who really grinds my gears? Someone who I am worth like 50 million more times. I hate that man so much.
So we get our final court appearance. I think we're in like the highest court in the state at this point, and it's 1906. And ultimately, Oliver is forced to take a guilty plea. We won't get into all the legalese of everything. He's forced to pay the fine of 18 cents. Again, this is what Rockefeller is pushing for.
Jesus.
A symbolic fine of 18 cents.
God.
And then, not so symbolic, well, also symbolic, Oliver is forced to pay Rockefeller's court costs of $790.31, which at the time is, a chunk of change. And this was also a big blow, not only just for Oliver Lamora personally, of course, and his 8 children, but again, this is a blow against public access to the Adirondacks. This meant that the judgment saying you could access private land to fish public fish, that judgment didn't hold water, as it were.
We really love rich people, man.
Yeah, they're cool, right?
I mean, like society, like it's like that saying, how much justice can you afford?
The impressive thing is like Oliver won more times than Rockefeller did, right? Like ultimately Rockefeller finally won the case, but like Rockefeller with all of his money was constantly dogged by this Civil War veteran, right? Like it took a lot of time, effort, and money on Rockefeller's part to like finally outdo this dude. And it doesn't end there. I'm going to quick go through some more details. And by it, I mean Rockefeller being an asshole doesn't end there.
No.
So right after this case finally gets closed 5 years later, like I think it was like a couple weeks or months after that, someone tattles on Lamora and says he has a deer in his basement outside of deer hunting season, and that deer was caught or shot rather on Rockefeller's land. This goes to court. Everyone's like, what an asshole. Like, what is Rockefeller doing? Later on, Lamora's son is caught trespassing on that land.
Yes, that's right.
Oliver basically tells his son to plead guilty. There's $100 fine. Oliver like breaks down in court as he pays it. Yeah, this is all documented. And again, everyone's like, what an asshole. Rockefeller sucks. Why are you doing this, man? What's your problem? The sentiment has bottomed out at this point. There's nothing left for Rockefeller in terms of public goodwill towards him. And because of that, guess what they do? They reopened the Brandon train station. So in an upbeat ending to the story, through it all, again, we mentioned like Oliver was able to kind of help be the poster child against Rockefeller and get the post office open again, and then also the train station open again, which was there until like the 20s. But yeah, kind of a crazy tale. Any takeaways for you, Jim?
Oh my God, this is a journey. What I guess the biggest takeaway is it doesn't hurt to have a lot of money. That makes life easy, but also I feel like money makes you crazy because this guy Rockefeller went down a whole fucking obsessive journey for one man. But at the end of the day, like, yo, you got to tip your hat to Oliver, man. He didn't give a fuck.
Yep.
He said, fuck this.
Yep.
I am not leaving. This is who I am. I have seen death. I am not afraid of you. Let's fucking go.
I think that's an upstater if I ever heard of one.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Listen, man, there's some real grit to the world that we live in upstate New York. And yo, man, he wasn't going easy.
No.
There's a lot of Olivers walking around upstate New York, man. That energy still lives, man.
All I know is I wouldn't want to be caught between a Rockefeller and a hard place.
Hey!
With that, Jim, we got to get to our closing segment where we cover review.
Yeah.
Should we read this review real quick?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So if you subscribe, rate, and review our show and leave a 5-star review, one, we might read it on air like we're about to do right now, but also you can drop in some suggestions for Upstate things that you would like us to cover. So we're going to read this review. It just came in. It's hot off the presses. Jim, are you ready?
Oh, I've never been more ready.
All right, this is a good one. The title is Like a History Class and a Comedy Show Had a Weird Baby.
Great.
Apt. All right, here's the review. I love this pod. I'm not from upstate, but try to get there a couple of times a year, and Rob and Jim make me want to go even more. They've got me laughing and learning.
Wow.
Manipulative, but I'll take it. I'll never listen to Rick James the same again. Definitely listen to Understanding Upstate. Pretty good review.
That's fucking great, man. Shout out to you out there for taking the time to write and giving us an interesting review. And I mean that in a very good way.
Well crafted.
Because I feel like the word interesting gets thrown the word interesting gets thrown around a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, man, that guy is really interesting. You're just trying to say he's a fucking weirdo. But I say that is a very interesting one in a positive light, because I didn't think I was going to hear all of those words put together. So there it is.
Well, what words are we going to be putting together next week, Jim?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? I would be honest if I said that there was this thing of ours that existed in upstate New York at some time. And I will leave that as our hint that there were some things of ours.
That's a good one.
That were happening in upstate New York.
I like it. Well, while everyone's trying to figure out just what we're going to be talking about next week, do you have anything that maybe they could listen to in the meantime?
Oh, in the interim, I do. There's an album called Upstate Understandings. It is available at jimsearch.bandcamp.com. Go there and buy it. Buy a million copies. That would be great, digitally, etc. But yes, go do that. And if you finish listening to it, you can then go to jimsearchcomedy.com if you want to hear my voice in real time, because I do comedy shows and those dates are listed there. So please go do that. I'd be forever in your debt if you do. Rob, let's say they finish through all of that, right? Mm-hmm. Is there anything that they could possibly listen to that you might be able to recommend?
In fact, there is something I can recommend. It's my album called New York Sticky. It's an album of beats inspired by disco, go-go, funk, kind of jam music. And you can find that at brooklynfrequency.bandcamp.com. There'll be links in the show notes for all of these potential purchases that you can make. If you want to find us online, again, you can find us on Instagram at understandingupstate, or you can email us at understandingupstate@gmail.com. Jim.
Yes.
I have figured out a sign-off for us this week. Are you ready for it?
Oh, I think so. I hope so.
Well, today's episode dealt a lot with, legal battles, so I have one thing to say to you.
What's that?
Lawyer up. I'll see you in court, and I'll see you next week.
Oh my gosh, come on, man. Fucking incredible. Y'all motherfuckers better give Rob his flowers, man. That's fucking great. We will see you next week. You'll listen to us next week, and you'll fucking love it. Understanding Upstate is a podcast hosted by Jim Search and Rob Adler, edited by Rob Adler, and music from Regal Monk.